The final draw finally is here, because that vibe, that special vibe that you feel on the World Cup draw is unmatched on that day, considering what could happen, what can be. So, completely different World Cup this one, 48 teams, 12 groups, and it will be stuffed with everything. We had already in the previous World Cup the draw with the playoff winners still that had to be known. This time will be four from Europe and two from the intercontinental playoffs. 4 pots. Now we'll see for each pot who is the best, who's the worst, who's the best possible group, the worst possible. There are a couple of things to know that are different in this draw that has never been like this. So, behind me, you see the shirts Spain, Argentina, France, and England. They are the top 4 teams, not only in pot 1, but of the FIFA ranking. Why? There is something different about them. Because for the first time, it's the very first time, the ranked 1 and ranked 2 team, meaning Spain and Argentina, will be drawn into opposite pathways in the bracket. Which means, once one of the first 2 is drawn, we know already that the other, between Spain and Argentina, will go on the opposite side of the bracket, as it would be a tennis bracket. Which means that if these 2 top their groups, they will never play each other unless it will be in the final. Which is quite a difference from the past, because the big guns, the top 4 big guns, and Brazil and Germany aren't among these top 4 at the moment, but the big guns usually could play each other in quarters or in semi-finals. Now, obviously, if they don't top their groups, they could face each other already in round of 16 or in quarterfinals, but that's because they failed to win the group. But otherwise, Argentina and Spain, they will play each other only in the final, as well as France and England, who are ranked 3 and 4 of the ranking, would be drawn in the 2 opposite half of the brackets, which mean that they can't face each other until the final if they win the groups. And so that Spain and one of the 2 between France and England, and Argentina, one of the 2 between France and England, will face, if they win the groups, only in semi-finals. This is brand new. It's totally brand new, and there was never like this before in the World Cup draw. Also, there is another thing to know, amongst the many that are the classic things that I won't repeat, that are always in the draw, that many are eyeing for to be drawn as Group H, especially amongst the seeded team. And many conspiracy theorists are saying that Argentina are designed to be in Group H. Why? Because Group H will play the top seeded of Group H will play 2 games in Miami and 1 game in Houston, which is only 2-hour flights from Miami, which in America is quite a short distance. And they are saying that because of Messi, because of Miami, and all the Latino Americans there and the Argentinian community. So Argentina would be directed there. Let's see if this conspiracy theory will have really substance. What we know is that the hosting countries, USA, Canada, and Mexico, will be allocated. We know already the groups: Mexico in Group A, Canada Group B, USA Group C, obviously because they are playing the games on their home soil, being the hosting countries. Let's have a look at the 4 pots. We have been ranking these in order by stars, in order of strength. So, pot 1, it is obviously, we saw already, Spain, Argentina, France and England. I'd say that the same level of them, obviously not exactly the same, but the same category, I'd put also 5 stars, Brazil and Portugal. Slightly under Holland and Germany. It's very weird to see that Germany has at least 6 teams that are ahead of them. Wow, quite a different compared with the history. Then below them, Belgium with 3.5 stars, and then 2.5 each for USA and Mexico, and 2 stars for Canada. Now, mind, each group will qualify the first 2 and the 8th best served. So even if you get into a group with a hosting team, you still have plenty of chances to qualify. Also, another thing to remember, there will have no countries from the same confederation can be drawn in the same group, except 4 groups that will have 2 European countries. Now, from this pot, obviously, everybody would like to pick Canada, which is the weakest. Then the 3 hosting countries are the weakest, although nobody wants to play Mexico on their own, but let's say also USA, but watch out also for Canada. But anyway, Canada is the weakest. If we look outside the hosting countries, Belgium probably is the less equipped. So if you have to choose, probably you would go with that. Pot 2, we know that pot 2 usually is the one that is shaping the difficulty of a group, whether that is in Champions League now no more, but in World Cup, but normally in Euros, pot 2 is always giving the exact difficulty of it. Now in pot 2, there are 4 teams that are more or less the same level: Croatia, Morocco, Uruguay, and Switzerland. Obviously with different ranges. Croatia and Morocco coming from the semi-finals in Qatar, Uruguay and Switzerland tough or super tough. Under them, I gave 3 stars to the finalists of Copa America, Colombia, but watch out also with Japan. You remember how tough they were in Qatar, and they've been working on that path. But let's say also Austria, 3 stars, very tough to play against, and they saw that at the last Euros. Under them, 2.5 stars, Senegal and Ecuador. Ecuador got some few single players, but as a level, as a whole team, they are very tactical, but not, you could play against. And Senegal, unreliable, pretty unreliable. On their day, they can do something good, but pretty unreliable. And below them, Iran, South Korea, and Australia. Now, obviously, if you pick from pot 2 here, Iran, South Korea, or Australia, I'd say you won a jackpot, considering that on the opposite spectrum there is Croatia, Morocco. So, but even although if you go with Senegal and Ecuador, but there is a huge difference here. Can't you see? It's not like, in pot 1, the huge difference is given by the fact that there are 3 hosting countries that are, anyway, they don't belong to the prestige of history of World Cup, but that's what's unusual. In pot 2, there is a huge range between from the top and the bottom. Then pot 3, and pot 3 basically you have 2 teams that are tough or super tough, and are the 2 Europeans, the only 2 European teams in this pot, but that are actually would probably be also top of pot 2. And I'm talking about Norway, 3.5 stars. Norway could very well be in the pot one with in place of Belgium for the level at the moment. And then with 3 stars, Scotland. Now, it is true that away from Scotland, the Scottish lose a bit of their toughness, but not the generation. This generation, I see that they can reach the round of 16. Well, 3 teams from 2 teams and a half from each group go from that. But they could actually go even through if they have a lucky draw. So, Norway and Scotland from this pot would absolutely shape the draw, and probably the group who would get Norway would be the death group of this World Cup. Then we have with 2 stars and a half Ivory Coast, which is probably the most equipped from all the African teams, also with experience. And then with 2 stars, Egypt, Algeria, Paraguay, and Saudi Arabia. Those is a mix of teams that don't shine, but that you always have to be careful of. You remember when Argentina debuted losing to Saudi Arabia. So, tactically clever, but they don't shine. And then below them, obviously, the level totally drops. 1 stars and a half for Tunisia, Panama, debutant, Uzbekistan, Qatar, and South Africa, who are back since the World Cup they hosted. The level there, if you check that, it's absolutely, it's a lot. It's infinite. It can decide the World Cup, the destiny of one team, of a country, even if a favorite one, because, I mean, if a Spain and Argentina pick Norway or South Africa or Qatar, the group is different. It's different also for the how much effort they have to put into those games to go through, and so the fatigue that they have to carry on in a tournament that this year, for the first time, this edition will be of 40 days, from 11th of June to 19th of July. The final will be in New York, unbelievable. It had to be in Los Angeles, just to repeat as it was in '94, but the owner of the Rams, LA Rams, who is also the owner of the stadium, said, "No, it's not worth financially for me to give you my stadium, go somewhere else." Unbelievable logic, but that's America. So, Norway and Scotland at the top of this spectrum, and below Qatar, South Africa, Uzbekistan, could shape very different. And then the trick of the pot 4, because it's the only pot where we don't know each of the teams. What we know is that the most difficult of the ones that we know, it's Ghana, 2 stars and a half. That could very well be a team from pot 2. Ghana probably is above Iran, South Korea, and Australia that are in pot 2. And same level of Senegal and Ecuador. So who picks Ghana from pot 4 could very be disadvantaged. Then 1 stars and a half, Cape Verde and New Zealand. Probably easy. Enthusiasm to take care of, but probably easy. And then the Cinderellas of the World Cup, and also the one that probably win the most sympathy, who are Jordan, Curaçao, and Haiti, the ones that deserve 1 star. Curaçao and Haiti, I have to say, the ones that everybody is looking at to understand if they will be the one cashing so much goals. Mine is the first World Cup enlarged to 48 teams. So everybody wants to understand if really this had made fall the level of the World Cup. And then there are the other 6 teams from the playoffs, for Europeans playoff and for and 2 intercontinentals. Now, the 4 European playoff, obviously, when the draw will happen, they will be marked X1, X2, X3, and X4 for the 4 European. And we already know that X1 is the most difficult because is the one including the pathway of Italy. Could be even that Italy won't qualify, but in that case would be, I don't know, maybe Wales. And Wales is tough from pot 4. But anyway, Italy, which I tip 4 stars, or Wales, which I tip, well, Italy 3 stars and a half, and I'd say Wales 2 stars and a half. X2 is the one that is including Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, Albania. Maybe Poland qualifying from this. Again, 3 stars and a half would be for Poland, and this would be even super tough for a group. The X3 will be the European pathway with Turkey, Romania, Slovakia, and Kosovo. This definitely more playable than X1 and X2. Probably Turkey coming out from this. And X4, the 4th European, the pathway Denmark, North Macedonia, Czech Republic, and Ireland. Probably this X4 would be the easiest European to pick. Then there are obviously the 2 intercontinental, and those are very easy to take. The first one is one amongst New Caledonia, Jamaica, or Congo, and maybe Congo. And this team will be drawn in a group with 2 Europeans and 1 South American, because it has to be excluded that New Caledonia, Jamaica, Congo goes in a team with an African, with one from CONCACAF or from Australia. And then the second path, which has Bolivia, Suriname, and Iraq. Here is difficult, probably Iraq, but watch out for Bolivia. And this will go to another group with 2 European and 1 team from Africa already. So this is. Now, if we look into that and considering that we can't factor the teams from playoff into how difficult group can be, let's see what could be the most difficult group overall and easiest. So I'd say the most difficult option would be the one having Spain, Spain, Morocco, Norway, and Ghana. Mamma mia. Would have semi-finalist of previous World Cup, European champion, the next big thing of world football like Norway, and Ghana, which is anyway dangerous. The easiest probably of this could be also, look, of the ones we mentioned, could be Argentina, Croatia, Norway or Scotland and Ghana. That also could be very difficult. Then obviously those 6, Spain, Argentina, France, England, Brazil, Portugal, they are more or less equivalent. But anyway, that Spain, Morocco, Norway and Ghana, or Argentina, Croatia, Norway, Ghana. That also would be with 2 semi-finalists of previous World Cup, world champion, other semi-finalists, and Norway and Ghana. The easiest group could be Canada, Australia, South Africa, and Canada, Australia, South Africa, and New Zealand. That is possible. It is ideally possible a group with Canada, Australia, South Africa, New Zealand, because Australia obviously is not in the Oceania Confederation or AFC, it's in the Asian Confederation. So it could very well be. And pardon if I mention my country, which still is not here at the World Cup, but ideally Italy could be drawn in the group of Canada, so would play in Canada 2 games, and could be the group, the easiest possible, could be Canada, Australia, South Africa, and Italy. Mamma mia, I would sign up immediately, said that Italy are able to lose to anybody and also to win to anybody. Maybe not this version of the Azzurri. But anyway, whoever would be picked there could be in that way. But could be also that not a team from playoffs is picked in this option. Mexico and USA would be already a tougher option than Canada. Canada could be also with Iran or South Korea. So one amongst Australia, Iran, South Korea. And then, yes, I'd say, I'd say South Africa or Tunisia from pot 3, and then from pot 4, New Zealand, definitely. Now, that would be quite something, I'd say. But games are almost done. It will be very, very, very thrilling to see what's happening. Mind, these 4 can face each other only this against this and this against this, and in semifinals if they top their groups. And then I would say that where Norway, Scotland, Croatia, Morocco, Uruguay and Switzerland will go, those 4 from pot 2 and those 2 from pot 3, that will shape the difficulty of the group, maybe will make the death group of the World Cup. Games almost done. I'd say it's time almost for the kickoff of the World Cup. Draw.